Alright people, what's going on? Space Cowboy here. Welcome back to the channel. Got another video for you guys today. Before we begin today's video, please make sure to hit this video with a like. It's been helping the channel a lot, so make sure to continue to do so. Also, subscribe if you're new to this channel so you get more Dallas Cowboys content from yours truly now and in the future. And finally, hit the notification bell to be notified when I go live or post new content. With that out of the way, I wanted to discuss the possibility of the Cowboys maybe having three 1,000-yard receivers. Now, you might say, Space Cowboy, isn't that a bit crazy? You know, are you on something? Like, some people might say that. But if you actually if you take an in-depth analysis of the players the Cowboys have, the track record that these players have, and this, that, and the third, you will know this is not out of the realm of possibility. Now, let's first take a look at 2019 stats before we look at this possibility happening in 2020. So, as you know, Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup are your two main guys in 2019. So, Amari Cooper played 16 games. He had 79 receptions with 1,189 yards, 8 touchdowns. You had Michael Gallup, who played in 14 games, had 66 receptions for 1,107 yards and 6 touchdowns. And then what's key here is looking at Randall Cobb's numbers, because if you recall, Randall Cobb, and more so the Cowboys receivers, had the most drops in the league. Randall Cobb, I believe, had the most, if I recall. And he played in 15 games. He caught 55 balls, and he had 828 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, what's key about that is that if Randall Cobb had caught the passes that he was supposed to catch, and you add those totals up, if I recall, because there was a statistic that showed like how much yards he missed out on. We would have had that 3,000, those three 1,000-yard receiving guys. And when I look at that, yeah, that's all fine and dandy, but obviously I'm more looking at the touchdowns, because if you can get into the end zone, that's what matters. But what's key about this whole thing is that I do firmly believe the Cowboys can have another trio that has 1,000 yards receiving in a single season. Now, just so you know, this has not been the first time that this has happened. The last time that there have been 3 guys of the receiving corps or something of that caliber to get 1,000 yards or more was 2008. You had Larry Fitzgerald with 96 receptions, 1,431 yards. You had Anquan Bolden with 89 receptions, 1,038 yards. And then you had Steve Breeson with 77 receptions, 1,006 yards. And yeah, so you look at that, and considering, if you know the history of that, did you know that team also went to the Super Bowl? Bet you didn't know that. But with that in mind, obviously numbers are good and all, but it's more so getting the overall production and getting in the end zone of what matters, right? Because, yeah, well, that 2008 team of the Cardinals did not have the best regular season. They went 9-7. They did have a good enough team all around them to get into the playoffs and ultimately get to the Super Bowl, where they nearly beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, what am I ultimately trying to get at here? What I'm trying to get at is that when someone mentions that this is a possibility of the Cowboys having 3 1,000-yard receivers, don't be afraid to acknowledge that or fight for that, because guess what? It is possible. When you have 2 guys already in Cooper and Gallup, right, that have already reached those thresholds and show how talented they can be and take the top off of defense, we've seen that with those 2 alone. Amari Cooper's your number 1 guy, and you have teams having to cover him. Then you have Gallup also causing issues for teams and the mismatch nightmare. Not only do you have those 2, now you add another wrinkle into your offense in CeeDee Lamb, best receiver coming out of the draft, and had his comparisons to DeAndre Hopkins and whoever the hell else, but mostly DeAndre Hopkins because of his play style. That's scary. And you might be saying, oh, we got a quarterback that can't. Listen, Dak Prescott's already proven how well he can be as a passer at this point in time. So don't get the crap, and don't try to listen to people that say we can't do this whole thing of getting these receivers to 1,000 yards. Because I could tell you that if the Cowboys can use, especially under Mike McCarthy, can use all these guys to at least 80% to 90% of their potential, in terms of what they offer, you're going to see that happen this year. And I think that ultimately comes down to how much the Cowboys effectively run their offense. I think Cooper and Gallup will have, I believe they will, have another 1,000-yard or close. They'll get there. Obviously, I'm assuming they'll be fully healthy because things can come up, so please keep in mind that. But another thing I should note is that even if one of the three were to get knocked out for injury, let's say for 3 weeks, because if you remember in 2019, remember that 2-game stretch we had without Gallup? I believe it was the Packers and Jets. No, excuse me. It was the Jets game and the Eagles game, if I recall. I apologize if I don't remember, but the point is he missed 2 games. And you saw how that offense looked without him, right? And that was without Cooper going out. So when you lose those dynamic playmakers, it really hurts your offense. But now that you have CeeDee Lamb, even if you lose one of these guys, to an unfortunate injury that it will flare up because that's the nature of the NFL, you don't have to worry about it because now you have talented guys that can pick up the slack. You see what I mean? So when I look at that, I'm extremely looking forward to seeing these three on the football field. Now, I think another point I should add too is that the Cowboys have had a trio with at least 900 receiving yards each. This has happened more common in the NFL, but it just happened last year with the Chargers. You had Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, and Mike Williams last year that had those types of yardages. I mean, they were really close. If Austin Eckler had 7 more yards receiving, they would have entered that. They would have been the 6th trio with at least 1,000 receiving yards each. The Cowboys did it back in 2012. You had Jason Witten with 1,039 yards and 110 receptions. Dez Bryant with 92 receptions, 1,382 yards, and Miles Austin with 66 receptions and 943 yards. So yes, the Cowboys have done this before. Okay. And I definitely think that it can. I think the Cowboys can beat that. I think that the Cowboys will definitely have the possibility to get to be the 6th trio that has 1,000 receiving yards each. And what's huge about that, and I think that this is something we all need to put together, is that, and I might be saying this over and over again, but I think I want to just make sure that this is known, is that we need to make sure that we're effectively running offense. Because guess what? Dak Prescott nearly led the league in passing. He could have hit 5,000 yards, broke Tony Romo's most passing. But guess what? If you look at those years where they reached that 8-8 and 8-8, so when we look, and not only that, I'm not saying like it's inherently his fault for why we ended up 8-8, because that it's a lot more than that. The Cowboys were 6-4 at one point, and it looked like that they were getting hitting their stride. Stuff happens, right? And I think that we got to understand. I think in also 2012 or it was 2011, they were sitting at 7-4 or something, and they collapsed at the end of the season. So like, trust me, we've seen this happen before, and that wasn't. And yeah, you could say some quarterback play here and there, but at the end of the day, like, if your offense and the decision making that goes behind it is not good, you're not going to see very good results on the football field. So I think that if Dak Prescott's putting up those numbers, hitting 30 touchdowns, this, that, and the third, just there, with that coaching staff and the players that he had then, imagine what he can do now, being, a more effective passer as he grows. Like, think about it, that's just 1 year, and typically quarterbacks take about 5 years once they finally get the team around them, and once they finally start adjusting to the NFL play style. Trust me, I think Dak Prescott's going to have a pretty damn good year in 2020, especially if all things go well and all of his weapons are available to him. And, hey, who knows? For all I know, they get close, but they don't get it. As long as we're getting games won, as long as we're getting to the playoffs, as long as we're winning playoff games, and if we're going to win championships in the future, as long as we're doing that, I don't really care how these guys get the football in their hands. So with all that being said, I want to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section below. If you like what you saw, if you like what you're hearing, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, hit the notification bell, and just tell me how you feel about this possibility. So with that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out, guys. Bye-bye.